In this video, we're going to be finding out about a brand new facility for the most private and secure cryptocurrency going.
NordVPN is becoming more than just a VPN. Threat protection will guard your device against malicious websites, malware, trackers, and intrusive ads, even if you're not connected to a VPN server at the time. Step up your cybersecurity and stay safe.
Tokenmetrics is a cryptocurrency investment platform that helps users leverage machine learning to become better crypto investors. Our in-depth analysis helps eliminate the emotions of investing, find profitable investment opportunities, and filters out scams.
Hi everybody, this is Crypto Rich, working with you to get rich with crypto, filling our pockets with pirate chain profits, which should give you a clue about which cryptocurrency we're going to be talking about. I'm joined by Paul Puey, who is the CEO of Edge.app. This is our second video that we've done about Edge, and I invite you to go and find out the first one. Go and watch the first one so you can find out all the information, what Edge does, why it's so secure, why it's so convenient, and how you can keep your crypto safe by using Edge. Before I introduce him, please subscribe, follow me on Twitter, CryptoRichYT, join my official Telegram announcements channel, and also follow me on bit.ly/CryptoRichOdyssey. This video will be on YouTube, but a lot of my videos, the really juicy ones, they're only on Odyssey, so follow me there. Hey Paul, how you doing?
Doing well. Good to hear that you're also on Odyssey, especially in the world of privacy. Man, a lot of governments and big institutions are not fans of privacy. For all you know, this video might have to go on only Odyssey.
Oh my God.
You know, and we talk.
No,
I hope not.
okay.
For your sake, I hope not.
I think
you'll be okay.
I can do pirate chain.
But it's a good backup. It's good that you're putting them on there because privacy is becoming super key. It's also becoming super hated. More and more places are not liking privacy and encryption and whatnot.
The only people who want privacy are terrorists, you see. Everybody else who's not a terrorist, they post their bank account details publicly. They leave the bathroom door open when they go to the bathroom. They share their private keys because they're not terrorists. Only terrorists are interested in privacy.
Well, it kind of makes sense because, here the U.S. government are kind of terrorists and they want privacy for the government. For themselves, they want privacy. They want a high level of privacy for themselves, not for anyone else. And so, you're right. Maybe they're terrorists too.
Yes. And that was... that's a good point. Your point was a good point. My point was absurd, to show up the absurdity of because without privacy, there's no freedom. There's just no freedom.
Yeah, there's no freedom of expression, and there's some expression that we actually do want to be public, right? And that's the reason why Assange existed, is that he wants to be able to express certain things and make it known, basically censorship resistance. But then on the flip side of that, there's expression that we want to be able to keep private. Maybe we want to express things, but not know or not let people know that it's us that express them. Yep. Right? Being able, and that's an important part of privacy. And we see examples of that in history where people express how they feel, and while what they say is not illegal at the time they say it, it then becomes illegal later, and they're kind of incarcerated for it.
Yeah.
And so that's the thing people forget. It's like, I'm not doing anything wrong, so why do I need privacy? I go, well, what you're doing today isn't wrong, but what you might be doing today is wrong tomorrow. And while you'd think that you won't get retroactively punished for it, there is precedent for that happening.
Yep. Plus also with the direction of travel, where governments all over the world want to set up systems where every single financial transaction that we undertake is known, and that they can penalize us if they don't like it.
Right. Yep. And the penalization is due to what, when you say they don't like, that's a very ambiguous and judgmental and subjective thing, because what the U.S. doesn't like is things completely accepted as a social norm in another country, and vice versa. And since these are financial transactions that potentially cross globes, why should one jurisdiction's definition of morality define a different jurisdiction? And that's why I think money needs to stay very neutral, right? We need to keep money neutral.
And money, think about it, it's just communication. I'm tokenizing the energy and effort and time, and then I'm giving that to you. That's all that money represents.
I'm communicating value.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, and then we covered in the first video about some of the functionalities of Edge. I don't think we covered all of it, right? There's a hell of a lot more.
There's a lot, yeah.
There's a lot. It's but just to go over it is that people have their own keys. You're out to replace centralized finance. So people have their own keys. They can exchange in DeFi applications, and they still hold their own crypto. And also, they have a loan facility in there, and you still hold your own crypto. You still have the private keys, and then also you do a lot with privacy coins. And also, we talked about the security, how secure you say that it is, right? And easy to use. Yeah, easy to
security,
use. Well.
Security by default and ease of security is the term that we use. We want to make security as invisible as possible, where you don't jump through hoops. You just do what you'd normally do to create an account, log in.
Yep, which counts for a lot. And then you have quite a few privacy coins, Zcash and Monero, and perhaps a few others. And something's happened with Pirate Chain.
Yep, it's actually Monero and Zcash were the first two privacy coins, and they were the only ones.
Monero was the first privacy coin.
Monero was the first one, Zcash the second.
Well, Zcash. Hold on a second. Monero's the privacy coin, and then you had Zcash as well.
Well, so here's an interesting thing about Zcash, and I think this is why I do like Pirate Chain. Is Zcash is kind of optional privacy.
Yeah.
However, we are the only app that integrated Zcash in a very interesting way. We don't give people the option of non-privacy.
Oh.
So with Zcash and Edge, you can only use the Z addresses. That's the only way. So Edge will not hold non-private Zcash. And while even the Zcash team, ECC team, kind of didn't like that decision, we said, sorry, like we want privacy by default. We don't want people having to choose or having to slip up and give up their privacy without realizing it. Because that's really easy to do, when you just think, oh, Zcash privacy, and you click on a button, you enable a wallet, and you send and receive money, and you don't realize that you've given up privacy because you're receiving into a transparent address and holding funds in a transparent address. That, to us is a compromise of the marketing of that asset.
Wow.
So it's actually less convenient to use Zcash and Edge than in other apps. For example, you cannot withdraw your Zcash from, say, a Coinbase into Edge because we only have these shielded addresses. So in Edge, at least, you're getting full privacy in the Zcash ecosystem. So yes, I would call Zcash a privacy coin when used in Edge, but not necessarily outside of that.
Yeah, it's almost as good as Pirate Chain then. Almost.
Yeah. From the privacy point of view, yeah. So one thing I got to give credit, you got to give credit where credit's due, right? They've made some what I would define as some poor decisions with really retaining and not accelerating the deprecation of the transparent mode addresses. They've said that, it's our goal to deprecate that, get everyone on full privacy. But I feel like it hasn't quite happened fast enough. And I know that there's a lot of exchanges. And of course, Zcash is a for-profit entity in ECC, and the value of the coin is very meaningful to the continued operation of ECC. And of course, being listed on exchanges helps retain that value or increase that value. So I see why there's a financial motive there, but at the same time, it's not achieving that true meaningful goal of driving privacy by default. And that is, once again, one of the, but the credit that I wanted to give, they're incredibly smart people working at ECC that are building Zcash. Right. And we wouldn't have a lot of other innovations in the privacy world and privacy tech without the team working on it. So give credit where credit's due.
The codography behind it. The code is open source, and I know it's been adopted and modified and built upon by lots of other cryptocurrency projects like Veruscoin, like Zen, and also Z Classic. So credit to them. And so now, just for those that aren't familiar with Pirate Chain, let me say a little bit about Pirate Chain. Every single transaction is private by default using ZK snarks. So there's no data on the blockchain. Nothing, no data to look at apart from the first coin, because it's a proof of work coin, and the first coin, the Genesis transaction, you can see to make sure that the miners aren't cheating by printing secret invisible coins, right? So you can see that one, and it goes into that's a visible transaction.
Shielded pool.
Yeah, but after that, nothing. You don't know how much. Paul, before this video, he sent me 100 million billion Pirate Chain. Honestly, he did, right? You won't know when he sent it. You won't know where it went, and you don't even know if he actually did send it, whether it was 100 million billion or not, right? So maybe just pulling my leg, right? Only the receiver and the sender know.
Exactly.
And then the other thing about Pirate Chain is that it's protected against double spend attacks, which means that all the transactions are hashed onto the Komodo blockchain every 10 minutes. And then from there, they're hashed onto the Litecoin blockchain. So in order to do a double spend attack, to attack Pirate Chain, to print out more coins and then go and sell them and make some money, you would need 51% of Litecoin's hashing power. And then 51% of Komodo's hashing power, and then 51% of Pirate Chain's hashing power. It ain't worth it. It ain't going to happen.
Right.
So that's Pirate Chain. And it's fully decentralized, run by a group of perhaps a grump of volunteer pirates. And it launched in August 2018. And I am proud to say I'm a first mate in the of the Pirate Chain crew. So that's Pirate Chain. So tell me the story about Edge and Pirate Chain. Did they approach you? Did you approach them?
We had some mutual contacts in the space. A lot of people in the libertarian space, the dollar vigilante, crypto vigilante crew. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that group of folks. Longtime Bitcoiners, some of them BSV fans. Love it or hate it. I'm more about the tech and the people. And they had brought it up to us, and I said, "Wow, I'm obviously very fascinated at privacy-based coins." We had already begun working with the Zcash team for integration. And while there are similarities between the two, we had to do the two integrations almost completely separate. Like they're almost very, very little work carried over from one to the other because the SDKs were separate toolkits. And that's a part of the difficulty that I can go into a bit more detail about, is like, what does it take to integrate some of these toolings? But we were approached by some contacts that are both very, 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 very strongly interested in Pirate Chain, and as well, we had known for a number of years since like the Airbits days, since the days of even before Edge, and I know that they had approached a few other wallets and asking for integration, and were asked a fairly significant, huge multi-six-figure sum of money for integration, which is far beyond anything that we would ever ask. But in some ways I could see why, because it's so hard. And admittedly, if this were not a privacy coin and we had to go through the same amount of effort, then we would probably ask for the same thing, because it was not easy at all. Multiple.
What makes it so hard?
Challenges.
Is it that it uses a lot of computing power to run the transactions or something, right? Remember, I'm not tech-minded. And also because you can't look at what's in the wallet. You can't see anything on the blockchain.
So to understand what's so hard, first you understand how other blockchains work, especially there's two kind of categories of blockchains that we deal with for integration. One are UTXO coins like Bitcoin, right? They're hard in and of itself. The good thing is you kind of deal with that hard once, with Bitcoin, and most others are very similar.
Right.
So, if we did nothing and we had to integrate Bitcoin, it would be hard. Probably equivalent, if not harder, than doing Pirate Chain. Like Bitcoin, we actually rewrote all of our Bitcoin code over the past 2 years and only launched it maybe half a year ago. All right. So there was a major, major rewrite of all of our Bitcoin code. It took longer than integration of Pirate Chain. Longer, I mean man hours, not calendar hours, like actual man hours. But that applies to Litecoin, Bitcoin Cash, Dash, and many others. So you kind of get amortized effort there. And then there's what are called account-based currencies, such as Ethereum, XRP, Stellar, Polkadot, Cosmos, things like that. And those typically have kind of two parts of the integration. One is an API, a service, or a node that you can query. And it's a straightforward query. It's like, here's my address, all right? Can you please tell me what my balance is and tell me what my transactions are? And I query those transactions. Fairly straightforward. That's kind of half the integration. And then that gets slurped up and put into your app, and your app, stores that in Edge. We store that local on the phone. And then the second is we need an SDK, which is a piece of software that knows how to create and sign transactions. Right? And creating those transactions is simply, this is my address. Here's who I want to send money to, and here's how much I want to send. Okay, a little SDK, a little toolkit of software, like for example, the Polkadot SDK. That's what I want to do. Go and create me this transaction. Boom. Okay, this transaction comes back, and then it's this payload of data, and then you can say, okay, little SDK toolkit, here's a private key. Please sign the transaction so that we can sign it. So it signs it. Now you have a signed transaction, and then you go back to the nodes and the servers. Go, the signed transaction, go and broadcast it. Just shoot it out there, right? Pretty much any node. You can broadcast it to 10 different nodes. Boom, out there goes the transaction. That exact process you do for almost every single account-based currency. It's relatively straightforward. Query your balances and transactions, create a transaction and broadcast it. Simple. Privacy coins are a whole other beast. And the challenge is querying a transaction is not straightforward because once again, the node doesn't know what transactions are yours. And it doesn't know what they look like. It doesn't know the balances. It doesn't know the amounts. It doesn't know what went out versus what went in. So now comes the trickery of just even knowing what transactions are yours. Now, and then in that becomes some heavy cryptography, which I will be the first to admit is above the capacity of our team. Right. Now, we could learn that. We've got some sharp people. We could learn that, but then that'd be the only thing we did. And you wouldn't have Edge. At that point, we might as well work on the protocol. Like, all of our devs are sharp enough to be protocol developers, but our focus is making the protocol usable at the application level. So we need some toolkits to help us. And a lot of the privacy coins have toolkits that work differently. In the case of Monero, for example, in order to query these transactions, we have to query a transaction. Monero is actually one of the simplest. Was one of the simplest, but it was just such an early. Actually, this is the biggest problem: is that so many of these privacy coins, the SDK, the software development kit, while it does make the effort easier, they're just so early. They're not documented. You don't know the errors. They don't work under certain conditions. You have to report, hey, why is this not working? And then they have to fix it, and you report and fix it. That is easily the biggest problem, is because it's hard to build those SDKs. And so when they get built and they get handed to us, they're mostly non-functional. And we have to discover what part doesn't work and then bounce it back. Right. So we've had to do this with pretty much every privacy coin. We almost never have to do this with a non-privacy coin. Right. And I think there's a reason for that, is that there's so few self-custody apps like Edge that even want to deal with privacy coins, that we're the first ones working with these things. Like, we're the only ones, we're first, if not only ones working with these SDKs, so that, no one else has run into the issues. We're the first one to run into them. And now we're going to make it easier for other people after us, admittedly. Right. And actually one of the most popular closed source self-custody multi-asset apps, which you mentioned in that video with us talking about Edge, actually took some of our open source code to integrate Monero and put it into their own. Right. And so they followed on Monero support after we did, probably thanks to a lot of the work that we did. Yep. And so, it's open source. We put it out in the open source world, so no complaints there. But just know that is a lot of what you're getting out of Edge is not just support for these assets in Edge, but you're getting them into other apps as well, because we're first to market. We're one of the earliest first to market, and we'll bang our head against these issues, for the rest of the industry. Okay. So just finding your transactions is an issue, right? Is how do I even find these transactions? And then the cryptography necessary to then create the transaction, create and sign it, is also fairly complex, where we're also having to then use these fairly complex SDKs to create and sign the transactions, to then broadcast them out. The broadcast is always, generally speaking, fairly straightforward. Like, once you have that signed transaction, you just send it out into the network and off it goes. Okay. And how long did it take to get Pirate Chain integrated into Edge versus compared to some other non-privacy blockchain? Yeah. So non-privacy blockchains, whether or not you call it a blockchain, XRP took about 2 days, 2 man days to integrate. No token support, nothing fancy, just send receive. Sure. And that was way back in 2018. Monero probably took about 2 to 4 man weeks to do. And that was, we got something up and running in a couple days, but with a whole lot of issues. Once again, SDK was very, very poor, had to go back and forth. And we couldn't actually get any edits done to the SDK because the team building it was very lean and just didn't have the capacity to make the edits. So we had to edit it ourselves. So we actually implemented a lot of edits to the Monero SDK. And then with Pirate Chain, I can't count the amount of man days anymore because it's been across years that we've been in the process of integrating Pirate Chain. And similar with Zcash, it was literally years. We started talking to, the Zcash team, I think as early as 2018. There was no SDK at the time, so there was nothing for us to do. It was just talks like, okay, here's what we need, here's what we need. I think integration finally got started in maybe 2019. And we didn't finish that integration until 2021, I believe. Pirate Chain was similar. I think we started in 2021, didn't finish until just recently. Right.
Okay.
So about a year and a half is how long it took to get the integration, and that was probably doing, about a man a week, 2 man weeks at a time, and then passing the buck over to the development team, the SDK team at Pirate Chain. Waiting a couple weeks for them to make edits, getting it back to us, trying to apply it, running into some issues back, bouncing it back to them. So a week here, a week there, a week here, a week there, over the course of about a year and a half. I think, we'd started chatting with them in middle of 2021. So it was definitely quite some time, quite a bit of effort. But then, like I said, we care a lot about privacy. We want to deliver these tools to people. So hopefully people do use it.
Yes,
we want people to actually get these technologies adopted.
Okay, and it's now on Edge.app, which is a mobile phone application, works on iOS and on Android, and you're going to be launching desktop at some point in the future.
Correct.
And what can I do with Pirate Chain in the wallet?
Yeah, so you can obviously send and receive it. It's not a DeFi protocol. There's no dApps and whatnot. But most importantly, you can also buy and sell it right inside of Edge. So you can swap into and out of Pirate Chain from other cryptocurrencies. Specifically, definitely Bitcoin and Ethereum. I think some stable coins as well. So if you're looking to simply acquire Pirate Chain, you could use our over a dozen fiat on and off ramps covering a vast majority of the world to buy a different crypto such as Bitcoin or Ethereum, and then take that and swap that into Pirate Chain, all within Edge, not ever having to leave the app.
Okay, and how is it priced for the transaction? And is it like, I think what Exodus does in the back end, it goes to exchange aggregators to do the transaction. So how does it happen with Edge?
So Edge is similar to Exodus in that regard. We go to exchange aggregators, not exchange aggregators. We are the exchange aggregator. When I say we, I mean the client side app.
Right.
So something I don't know exactly how Exodus works because they're closed source, but the app is much more client strong, is what I call it. It's not as server strong as likely in Exodus, in that we do everything on the phone. So when you go and say, I want to buy some Pirate Chain, some ARRR with Bitcoin, from your phone, it literally goes out to, almost like 10 different exchange providers, including DEXs, which I don't think Exodus supports. We also support DEXs such as Thorchain for cross-chain swaps. So you can get, Thorchain does not support Pirate Chain today, or any of the privacy coins, but Monero is on the roadmap. So I know they want to get Monero in pretty soon. But it'll go out there, get a quote from all of them, and then surface the best quote. I don't know if that's what Exodus does as far as surfacing the best quote.
Right. I think it goes to aggregators like ChangeLly and ChangeNow and SwapZone, and it does.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly. Yeah. Best quotes. It's more expensive than going directly to the aggregators, I found.
Yeah, it definitely can be, and it can be, but at the same time, sometimes you don't know which of those aggregators will give you the best price. So there's a huge discrepancy in the quotes that you're going to get from a ChangeLy, a ChangeNow, a Godex, Change Hero, and we have, like I said, like almost a dozen of these integrated into Edge. And while it might be cheaper to go directly to ChangeNow than go to ChangeNow from Exodus or Edge, you might still get a better price because we'll find something better than ChangeNow, like such a Change Hero. And that better price might actually be not just specific to the asset you're swapping, but the amount that you're swapping.
Right.
And you might find at $5,000, you'll get a better price on ChangeNow. But at $50,000, you might get a better price on Change Hero. And at $100,000 worth, you might get a better price on Godex. And that's something that we do is make sure at that exact amount for the exact asset you want, we're going to find you the best rate. And that's where once again, it's closed source. I don't know how it works, but I noticed in Exodus, when I enter an amount, I get a certain spread.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what amount I enter, I get exactly the same spread, which is not realistic if you're going to go to kind of your best price. So I'm not sure if that's just an estimate, or if they're just like taking the worst case and applying that across all the different amounts, it is a faster experience because as you type, you can get your quote. But realistically, you can't get a quote that fast if you're going to 12 different partners. So for us, it's you type how much you want, you hit next, and then it literally kind of like Expedia goes and hunts you the best quote for exactly what you're trying to send.
Okay, and I really like the idea of being able to buy a little bit of Bitcoin to buy a little bit of Pirate Chain. I can do that on a weekly basis, and then there it is. How long does the whole transaction take? Like from the Bitcoin exchanging Bitcoin to Pirate Chain?
Got it. So buying Bitcoin that's coming from fiat, that is a fiat world. Oof, boy, you kind of never know the goddamn fiat world. We've seen it as fast as a couple minutes. Typically with credit card, you can probably get that fastest, but of course with speed comes cost, right? So it's the most expensive way to purchase via credit card, but you can get it pretty quickly through. And we have an aggregator there too, credit card aggregator that aggregates 3 different partners: Simplex, Banksa, and MoonPay. So if you're using credit card, Apple Pay, Google Pay will actually find you the best price across all of those partners. For those of you in the UK like yourself, you can also use faster payments with our partner Banksa. Once you have the Bitcoin, and that'll take, like I said, a few minutes to a few days is our experience. Once you have the Bitcoin to Pirate Chain going through one of our partners usually takes a few minutes. And I think at worst case, we've seen a few hours. Right. At absolute worst case. It can go into the days if someone's buying a lot and they run out of liquidity, because a lot of these services, they hold some amount of liquidity, but if they run out, they have to go and buy it from another exchange to send it over to you. So that's been our experience, is roughly that. I can't promise you'll get the exact same experience because it all depends on other people using the system at the time you want to make a swap. But expect a few minutes.
Okay, so then I could use your app to discreetly purchase, because I can send Bitcoin from another address, or Ethereum or Litecoin from another address, or Monero from another address, and use your app to convert to Bitcoin. Or can I go from Monero to Pirate Chain?
I haven't tried, but that's possible. Because we don't test every single pair. There's like an infinite amount of different pairs across all of the exchange partners. So I'd say try it and see if an exchange partner gets found that can swap Monero into Pirate Chain. But for sure, Bitcoin, Ethereum, almost certainly, because they're the behemoths.
Yep. Okay, and that will then I get a very easy access to getting some.
And Litecoin. I've personally tested Litecoin, so I know if I've personally tested going into and out of Pirate Chain from Litecoin. That one should work.
Very cool, very cool. And we talked about the security in the first video. So and there's no KYC and there's no sign up or anything where I would get identified as an Edge user. So then I get to preserve my privacy and I get to accumulate more R, which can't be bad. Is there anything else you want to let us know, Paul, before we finish up?
We've covered a lot. I'm sure there's many things that I'm missing out. Probably the one thing that I know, and I hinted on it a little bit in our talk, but one thing that I want to encourage people to look for, whether they're using Edge or not, is open source. And I think our world early on in Bitcoin, we've been in this for a while. People valued that a bit more than they do today. Some of the hottest apps that people are loving and are coming out, especially the new fresh ones for other chains, Solana and whatnot. People have forgotten almost everything is closed source now. And there's so much of focus on like monetization and tracking and whatnot that people forget about. They think only self-custody, but they forget about privacy and transparency, which are a key piece in getting that self-custody. There was a recent wallet app that I don't even want to call it hacked. They just dumb screwed up. And they were closed source, so none of this could have been audited. No one knows. No one could have found it other than their internal team. But they were, without the user saying anything, they were streaming logs of user access to their server. Like as you're using the app, and many apps do this. As you're using the app, you're literally sending everything you're doing over to a server. Right, but with that, they were streaming the private keys, and whether it be malicious or just a mistake, it was one of the biggest, well-funded, VC-funded, multi-million-dollar backed startups in the Solana wallet ecosystem that was doing this, but fully closed source. So once again, this is something that anybody can screw up, right? We're all humans. We all make mistakes. I'm not going to claim that we could never do anything like that, but we are open source. We, every commit that goes into our code base is reviewed within our team. And the nice thing is you can see that. You can say, oh, look at all these PR pull requests, okay, submissions of code. You can see, okay, this is the developer that submitted. Here's the developer that reviewed it. And while there's no guarantees there, it's just kind of like, redundancy. Like we can prove that redundancy, that nothing is just kind of getting into our code base willy-nilly. So those are the things I think of are things people should keep in mind, right? Look for open source tools. Blockchains are transparent, not necessarily the transactions, but the code base of blockchains are transparent. That transparency of the code shouldn't end at the protocol level. It should continue into the apps that you use to access those protocols. And of course, Edge is one of those options. So keep looking for those type of options and all the things that you do when interfacing with crypto. I think that's an important value that hasn't been talked about enough as of recent.
Great. Paul, thank you so much. I'll have all the links to Edge.app in the description below. And of course, to Pirate Chain, really, really appreciate it. Completely agree with you, the importance of open source. And that's consistent with Pirate Chain, which is open source and privacy focused. And thank you so much for watching. If you have any comments or questions, put them in the description below. Go check out Pirate Chain. Go check out Edge.app. Between now and when I see you next, please keep filling your pockets with Pirate Chain profits. This is Crypto Rich and Crypto Paul signing out. All the best. Bye-bye.
Cheers.